everyone to the Institutionalization and Professionalization of Evaluation session of the third APR conference and EvalFest 2022. We are happy to have you here with us, and we have had good participation in all of our sessions till now. At least 50 to 60 people have joined all panel sessions, and plenaries have had almost 100 people joining in. So this is the 12th session, and we are in the midway of the conference. Like we started yesterday and we'll be going on tomorrow. We have speakers with us, our chair, Danilo, our panelists, Alok Mishra, Monica, Wolfgang Meyer, Soma De Silva, and Violeta Corpus are all present with us today. I'd like to our chair today and then hand over to him so that he can take it from there. So our chair is Vlatko Danilo, who is co-chair of Interregional Initiative for Professionalization of in Evaluation, IRIPE. Vlatko is a professional management consultant for last 20 years. He is an evaluation expert and activist for more than 10 years. At present, he is the coordinator for Macedonian Evaluation Network and Western Balkans Evaluation Network. And he was formerly chair of Network in Europe and an active member of several international organizations which focus on evaluation. We are happy to have him here as our chair and leading this session. Vlatko, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm really honored and I have a pleasure to facilitate, let's say, this session about professionalization. As you said, so I'm coming from IRIPE, so we call it simple IRIPE, which is an international, interregional initiative for professionalization in evaluation. And our main focus of our existence is improvement of professionalization in evaluation, since we believe that this will contribute for the improvement of evaluation, use of evaluation, and by this improving the life of the people. So we are going to have a very interesting panel today with very estimated, high appreciated panelists, 5 of them, as you mentioned them. So let me introduce them one by one, who are the panelists of today's panel. So we'll start with Miss Monika Niziolek from Poland. So she is a PhD of Polish Academy of Sciences and have a postgraduate evaluation studies in the University of Warsaw. So she gained the first experience in conducting evaluation in mid-90s, so 30 years now. We have as the owner of Evaluation Research Lab. So she has experience in commissioning and supervising evaluation, along with the providing consultancy and mentoring in this area. She is the co-author of more than 20 publications of evaluation, and Monika is the president of Polish Evaluation Society. So she is a mentor, trainer, certified reviewer of European Evaluation Society and member of advisory board of NESE. NESE is Network of European Societies in Evaluation. So Polish Evaluation Society representative in IRIPE. So the Polish Association Society is part of IRIPE. And I forgot to mention that IRIPE has members from Asia, Africa, Europe, and South America. So we are trying to really do something in professionalization. Okay, so the second panelist is Professor Wolfgang Meyer from Germany. He is associate professor for sociology at Saarland University, adjunct professor at Utami, Kampala in Uganda, senior scientist and head of evaluation department in Saarland University in Germany, founding member of German Evaluation Society, DGEVAL, member of European Evaluation Societies since 2016 and speaker of thematic working group Evaluation Sustainable Development, involved in more than 50 evaluation projects, mainly in environmental, vocational education and development evaluation, member of IBDET steering group, lecture for IBDET and 2 Master of Evaluation program in Saarland University, specialist in methods, environmental and sustainable issues. Our third panelist is Dr. Soma De Silva from Sri Lanka. Dr. Soma De Silva is former UNICEF South Asia Regional Advisor on Monitoring and Evaluation. She pioneered the foundation of the Sri Lanka Evaluation Association and served twice as its president. She has served as the president of International Organization for Collaboration in Evaluation, IOC, and as a founder of and co-chair of EVAL Partners. Her work was instrumental in establishing a postgraduate diploma in evaluation at the University of Sri Jayawardena Pura for improvement of professionalization of evaluation. I hope I pronounced this well. Her recent publication, Theory of Change in Development Success, a workbook, was a further attempt to promote academic training in evaluation. So she is very, very keen about the training and evaluation and education in evaluation. Our next panelist is Director Violeta Corpus from Philippines. Director Violeta Corpus has currently heads the monitoring and evaluation team of specialists in Philippine government, Socioeconomic Planning Authority, NEDA, and responsible for the coordination, facilitation, and annual reporting to Congress. Her office coordinated the formulation of 2015 National Evaluation Policy Framework and drafted the guidelines for the framework, which is being pilot tested in several commissioned evaluation studies. Her office is also coordinated the preparation of the results metrics for all chapters of Philippine development plans. Organize other development forums, including country monitoring reports, and track progress of Philippine commitments under the Paris Declaration, Accra Agenda, Busan, and post-Busan events. She currently manages a project with UNDP for the conduct of thematic evaluation studies, evaluation capacity assessment for government agency, and setting up of monitoring and evaluation information system and national evaluation portal. Okay, Mr. Alok Mishra from India. So he is a civil servant for over 23 years of experience. He has recently joined the additional Director General, Media and Communication, Ministry of Commerce, Industry, Food and Public Distribution. Until recently, Alok was posted as Deputy Director General in the Development Monitoring Evaluation Office in NITI, where he oversaw evaluation studies of government schemes, external engagement with international organizations, and academic institutions, beside capacity building, competency framework development, and national evaluation policy. Earlier, he worked as a Senior Deputy Director at Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, where he taught economics, management, evidence-based policy, and media communication. Mr. Mishra is a BTech in electrical engineering in Delhi and gold medalist of PG in public policy management from the Bangalore Syracuse University, USA. Okay, so this is our panelist. So as I said, very appreciated, very experienced panelists. So we expect very, very dynamic discussion with them. Okay, so we can start with the first question. So the scenario of this is that we are going to general questions. So each of the panelists will provide their insights and reply to the questions. So we will start with Alok Mishra with the question. So the question is about how evaluation professionalization fits to supply and demand, how the professionalization is relevant to supply side, how evaluators and how to demand side, commissioners and users. So we would like to see some balance for both sides. So this is some like a market demand. And what are the main factors? So which are the drivers that focus, determine evaluation professionalization? So what is that really matter about the development of evaluation professionalization? So, okay, let us start with the first panelist, Mr. Alok Mishra. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Ratko. It's so nice of you to sort of introduce me. Ratko, having had this experience in the Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, where I was handling number of responsibilities, what I understood was that professionalization necessarily builds credibility and respect among the amongst the commissioner of evaluation, which is itself good for the field of evaluation, and which affects both the which creates a very positive sort of virtuous cycle for both the supply and demand. It also leads to some sort of standardization of evaluation practice. We need to understand few things because being in the government where I have handled policy making and policy implementation, and then sort of in DMO being on the other side where you are there as an evaluator, we need to realize the government's being in the driver's seat for fulfilling the expectations of the people are skeptical of any evaluation. And this could be because of multiple reasons. I think firstly, they may feel that given the range of methodologies, evaluation methodologies, and requirement of context, because different countries are placed in different contexts or development, profile, evaluation as a field may be very confusing to them. For an ordinary bureaucrat who is not sort of does not understand all those methodologies, for him or her it may be quite a confusing field. Secondly, there may be a perception, especially in democratic polity, that evaluators don't understand the imperatives undergo regular multiple feedbacks, especially more so in an era of complex policy issues. Which in complex policy issues will require quick insights, and based on those evaluation insights, iterative policy interventions are made. And at times the evaluators may not sort of understand, and that's where the credibility question comes. And what my understanding is that professionalization pushes that credibility. It more in economics terms, it acts as a signal for both on both sides, those who are taking up evaluation as a career, so like more good people coming out there, and those who are commissioning evaluation. Now, having said that, I do realize that professionalization requires an policy framework has to be in place, and existence of quality academic and research institutions to be in place, because that creates the demand for people to take up evaluation as a career choice. Broadly, what just to be brief, that it requires strong institutions which the government needs to create, and for which you need evaluators or professionals need to establish that credibility, and which sort of professionalization does. Generally, the way I have seen is that so many things go side by side. What that means is that the professionalization goes alongside strengthening of evaluation institutions, policies, or policy measures. And that's why it is more a greater responsibility of evaluators or evaluation professionals to sort of establish that credibility, which professionalization surely does. And professionalization doesn't have to happen just for evaluators. It has to happen for the commissioners of evaluations also, because both sides, when they start understanding, they talk the same language, they understand the same vocabulary, then the virtuous cycle of supply and demand gets created. So that's from my side. We can, when more questions are there, I can respond in more detail. Thank you so much.
Vladko, you are muted. Vladko, you are muted. Vladko, you are muted.
Sorry. So thank you very much, Alok, for this. And so it is very good that you highlighted that the importance of both sides speaking the same language. So it is very important to establish trust between the both sides, supply and demand side. Okay, let us go with the second speaker. So we have Soma de Silva, Dr. Soma. Could you take over, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Vladko. First of all, I think this is a very timely question. It is also an issue that must be addressed very urgently. We have been talking, when I say we, the international community, at global, regional, country levels, we've been talking about this, and we've been trying to achieve professionalization for several decades now, a minimum of about 2 decades or even 3 decades. But we are still talking about it. So what does that mean? That means professionalization hasn't happened. If it has happened, we don't need to talk about professionalization and institutionalization. So I think we have a major task, a major responsibility, almost a moral responsibility, to see why evaluation is not considered a profession, why it is not professionalized. I can say in Sri Lanka, the Organization of Professional Associations do not consider evaluation as a profession. So if we believe that evaluation is a very valuable tool, a very valuable set of procedures that help countries achieve development results for their people. We believe that. We think we have the methods, techniques. However, we have not been able to convince others about it, to use evaluation. My impression, I could be wrong, lot of people, probably a lot of people in the governments, and I think I'm not far from wrong when I say a lot of politicians have not yet come to accept evaluation, to welcome evaluation, and most of all to use it to achieve development results, and in fact to achieve their own goals. So this is a very pertinent question, a question that I am really very passionate about. So I think this question raises more questions. For example, who do evaluators serve? We could say that evaluation should be serving primarily the governments, because the governments are responsible, and they are the leaders, they are the institutions that identify development issues, that design, implement development programs. So if evaluation provides valuable tools and provides power in the sense of knowledge as to what works and what does not work, then governments are the ones who should be primary users, who should be making the biggest demand for evaluation, who in a sense would also have helped, enabled professionalization to have happened, but it hasn't happened. So there is a big question, why? And since we have been doing this for about 3 decades or more, we do need to address it using the techniques that we are teaching people, how to understand a problem, how to identify its causes, and how to address them. But my rather limited experience of working with governments, I would say, when you say government, we actually mean, especially in relation to evaluation, politicians. Because it's the politicians who decide priorities, directions, how funds are allocated. The government machinery is there. However, this machinery is completely governed by politicians, at least in some countries. We can identify some countries where that happens, but I think it happens in most countries. In that case, we need to make sure, we need to approach the politicians and make them realize that evaluation is in their favor. It is to help them. But how do we do it? Do we have evidence to show that evaluation helps? And that's another big question I would really like to raise in this forum. How do we find evidence? How do we bring it to them? I know there are countries in the world who are using evaluation, who have progressed very far, who have advanced, and there is some evidence. But we also need to remember the context. Most countries in the world are not in that group. So where is the evidence that can be, that can fit into the context of these situations, of these countries? So I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Soma. So thank you very much. So it is really important that you highlighted so that the main driver, in fact, is the demand side. So the politicians, so there, if there is no awareness of politicians and they do not demand for this, so usually probably it will be useless to do a lot of other things. So as you said, so for 3 decades, we are talking about the professionalization, but it is not happening. So we couldn't convince the politicians that this is very useful and they should institutionalize and professionalize this professional evaluation. Thank you very much. So one of the drivers is the government and the politicians. Okay, thank you. So we are going to another speaker in our panel. So Professor Mayer, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. But let me first start with a very personal remark, because I have to apologize that I may be not as focused and concentrated as I should. As you probably know, Russia started the war in Ukraine today, and my heart and my thoughts are with the people in Ukraine, and especially with our colleagues from the Ukraine Evaluation Society. I know that Vladko and Monica, of course, have also some contacts, and I think it is a hard time for us at this moment. This is also showing us how fragile institutionalizations are. You never know what will happen in Ukraine after this war, and to the evaluation society and all the work which is done there. So, but getting it on the questions back again, yes, I'm totally with Soma. We have done a series of analysis all over the world, starting in Europe and coming now to America, on the professionalization of evaluation and the institutionalization of evaluation in a broad variety of countries. The book on Americas is now on the market, and we are working with the Asian book at the moment. So, and there's a clear result from all papers I read in Asia as well, of course, as all these in Americas and Europe, that evaluation is demand driven. There are two main forces which are really bringing evaluation into an institutionalization process. And the one is coming from inside, so let's say it's new public management as a buzzword. This means in many countries, like especially in USA and Canada and South Africa, which are the starting points of this institutionalization process of evaluation, it was this development in, let's say, more in the administrative sector than in really in politics. And the second force, and this should not be underestimated, are the international and transnational organizations. In Europe, it is for sure the European Union. Almost everywhere, even in Britain and in Spain, for example, the European Union is one of the huge players in commissioning evaluations, because there is a clear rule that all finance programs of the European Union must be evaluated. And this is a driving force for institutionalization in almost all countries in Europe. There are also other organizations, for sure. For example, coming to Asia, it is not the European Union. It is for sure it is UN organizations like UNICEF, for example, or UNDP. But also some other organizations which are more focused on the continent, like the Asian Development Bank. So this is the driving force on that side. And if you look at the supply side, you have to say we are still at a very dangerous situation, because evaluation is not very well institutionalized on the supply side, even in countries like the United States of America, or here in Germany. So we are working hard to professionalize and to establish in, well, let's say for me personally, at the universities. But you have to recognize that it mostly is the personal initiative of single professors, and as soon as they retire, the structures break down. So we have at the moment, we have this situation in Germany. Professor Reinhard Stockmann is also here, and the APEA is now retired. And this was a very difficult situation to keep the institutions he developed. So the only German-speaking journal, for example, the study programs we have here. And why it is a problem? It is a problem because we do not have a lot of the study programs or of such journals. So there's not a spread all over the country and all over Europe. So we still have to work on the supply side because there are so many people doing evaluations, no doubt about that. But the networks are still not strong associations which are really supporting and developing evaluation at the national level. But to end up with a positive sign, it is totally different if you look at the global association and the global evaluation community. So there's a lot of driving forces coming from these international meetings like the APEA, and of course also like the European Evaluation Society and other organizations, RELAC in Latin America, just to name some. And there's a lot of activities from UN organizations like the World Bank, which try to get something like a global spirit of evaluation. And this is really also a driving force. So I want to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Meyer. Really, I'm sorry for getting this unmute. So demand-driven is the key. So this is very important to estimate, so that we really need to focus mostly on the demand side. Of course, there is a supply side, and it needs to be somehow improved, but demand side is the key. Without this, so it will be very, very difficult to do anything in this one. And so, as I said, so in some countries it is forced by the international organization as EU, so they require the countries to do this. And so, unfortunately, so in other areas, so this is not the case. Okay, thank you very much for pointing out this, and of course the improvement and the education importance in education. Thank you very much, Professor Meyer. So now we ask Violeta to come and tell us about the questions, what she thinks about this.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you for the warm introduction earlier, Vlad, and also good afternoon to everyone, to the participants and my co-panelists here. Okay, let me start by sharing the experience of the Philippines and how we answer this question on screen. Actually, I work for the Philippine government for over 3 decades by now, and I've seen over the last decade the shift to results orientation, to focus on results, and clamor to generate evidence for decision-making processes in order to justify an efficient allocation of limited budget, government resources due to competing priorities on an annual basis. We cannot yet talk of professionalization and institutionalization unless the preconditions for evaluation practice are clearly laid out. These are a policy framework to put in place an evaluative thinking and practice in the public sector, capacity building for evaluation units, commissioners and evaluators, and choice of priority evaluation topics relevant to policymakers and implementing agencies in terms of their mandated functions. The Philippines National Evaluation Policy Framework, jointly issued by Department of Budget and Management and our Socioeconomic Planning Secretaries in July 2015, laid down the policy framework for doing evaluations. The accompanying NEPF guidelines we recently completed supported the said policy framework, and it was rolled out already to 8 key departments. Generating demand for evaluations in the government started off by creating awareness and buy-in on the importance of doing evaluations. And of course, we demonstrated it in the pilot agencies. So the agencies prioritize at least 2 topmost evaluation topics that impact on their mandates and future budgets. This is how we initially created demand. Stakeholders consultations during the evaluability assessment exercises for those chosen topics strengthen the demand side that is bearing in mind that the evaluation objectives are exact accountability, transparency, and learning from the chosen evaluation study topics they plan to conduct in the future. But in parallel, we also commissioned thematic and sector studies which aimed at unearthing evidence to prove the achievement of the desired results and targets we spelled out under our Philippine Development Plan. Each chapter of the Philippine Development Plan, we also had the results matrices so that we have clear indicators on what to track in terms of the progress of the implementation of the Philippine Development Plan, embedded the SDG targets. This is the government arena we operate on, and we need to institute some form of professionalization. Indeed, that is the direction we are now heading. Among professionalization, among external evaluation industry, among the commissioners of evaluation, the users of evaluations as well. On the supply side, however, for both our internal evaluations and our externally commissioned studies, we saw low-quality evaluation studies crying out for professionalization. The industry for evaluation currently is very thin, and we have very few consultants doing proper evaluation work. With a growing demand for evaluation of government programs, projects, and policies, professionalization of evaluation definitely becomes very relevant and necessary in the current times. We need to address the competency requirements to legitimize evaluation practice. Professionalizing the conduct of evaluations will increase public trust and confidence for credible, high-quality, and unbiased evaluation results, which will be useful and valuable for the government's planning, resource allocation, and implementation of priority programs, projects, and even policies. Therefore, the main factors that determine professionalization are existence of policy guide, instrument, including the guidelines, which we recently developed, which will be required to standardize the conduct of evaluations, presence of a community of practice embracing and supporting the conduct of evaluations, and of course, access to formal education and training to equip the evaluators, the users of evaluation, and even those in the private practice, consulting services industry, the necessary competence, skills, and allow the build-up of evaluation experience, hence the ultimate aim of leveling the playing field for quality evaluations. So I think that's all I can share in response to this question. Back to you, Vladko.
Thank you very much, Violeta. Thank you very much for very good insight of this. So you're absolutely right about that. The scarce resources and the budget of the country shall not be wasted, and evaluation should help in this. And I appreciate that you mentioned that the low quality evaluation are ruining the trust among the supply and demand. So we really need to be very serious about this. But I'm very happy that we are talking about the demand side. So it is very rarely discussed this side and how the commissioners because they are the driver of evaluation. So if they make the wrong questions or make the wrong perception of this, so the even perfect evaluation could be just for nothing. So we really need to work on the both sides and talk the same language as we mentioned. So I'm glad that you asked, you mentioned the policy guide as well. So maybe we should as well mention the national evaluation policy, national evaluation system as a systemic definition of the evaluation and institutionalization of evaluation in some country. So I believe that in some other sessions, so this is discussed, but just to mention this. Okay, thank you very much, Violet. Monica, please.
Hello, thank you very much for inviting me to contribute to this panel. I would like to join to what Wolfgang said at the beginning of his speech, because we are in Poland and Poland lies between Germany and then Russia. We are very concerned what's going on in Ukraine right now. And I would like to also to express my personal, but also our, as a WOPES, Polish Evaluation Society, support for Ukrainian, for this strive for independence, and also our support for Ukrainian Evaluation Society, for our colleagues, our friends. So Vladko, regarding to the question, I think that the main factors that determine evaluation professionalization and institutionalization, because both of these issues are of course connected, were already mentioned here by my colleagues. So of course, crucial elements like legal framework or organizational structures that Alok mentioned, but also education, yes, formal, non-formal, competencies, academic courses, post-diploma studies, training that were mentioned by Violeta and by Wolfgang, and also establishing WOPES, yes, voluntary organizations in professional evaluation, because they develop evaluation standards, guidelines, codes of ethics, maybe even certification or credentialing procedures. What Violeta said, but I think, excuse me, I think that all these elements are very, very important, but in my humble opinion, they are not enough. Why? Because when I think about my country, what could be improved in Poland, that already has most of these elements, and sometimes evaluation doesn't work. What's going on? Because I think that one of the crucial elements is also cooperation, the element that Wolfgang mentioned. Yes, so the network and the cooperation between different actors at the national, but also international level, but also within the national level, between various fields where evaluation is present. Because as you, Vladko, said, it creates a kind of ecosystem, yes, at the different levels, national, regional, and then even global levels. So for instance, in Poland, we have separate evaluation subsystems, like one of them is European Union funds mentioned by Wolfgang, but also we have a separate system regarding formal education, regarding local governments and development assistance and social policy. And all these areas create their own, I call it evaluation islands. Then these islands do not cooperate, and there is a very poor spillover effect. So these islands, these entities, do not learn from each other. Yes, each island invents its own evaluation from scratch. So I think in this case, the whole ecosystem, national ecosystem in Poland loses. And moreover, I think that the evaluation culture is also an essential element of this ecosystem, because we can have excellent ecosystem, that does not work properly. Why? Because there is no deep understanding of evaluation functions and its benefits. For instance, when evaluation is identified with control, not with a tool for improvement. And if there is no social trust, what my colleagues mentioned before, yes, when there is no real democracy, without all these elements, evaluation doesn't make sense, I think. So without these all elements, evaluation becomes just a ritual, facade, apparent activity that does not change anything, but only maintains the existing status quo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very much for highlighting these important things. Yes, absolutely agree with you. So there are a lot of things that could be there in the country, but so still doesn't work. So this is a key of the success. So as you said, so the evaluation culture, the mindset of the people is crucial to develop this. So if this is not present, so we can do everything, all the systems, but so it will not work. You have mentioned the evaluation islands, and so I would like just to add, so one country, when they invent the system for evaluation, and when it is only for this country, and it is not regional and compatible to the global evaluation, so it is difficult then to compare and to measure, to cooperate with others. So I believe that the global network need to work in the same direction and develop the system of professionalization that will be a global system. So of course, with some small adoptions for the countries, but so the islands are not good for any profession. So you can imagine, so if you're a doctor working with standards only for your country, so you cannot work in other. So this is, thank you very much for very, very good. And for, of course, for mentioning WOPES. So, and this is something that we really need to think about. What is the role of WOPES in this system of development of professionalization? Okay, thank you very much. So we are finished with round one, the question one. So I would like to invite you to see the second question and share your thoughts about the second question. Could we have the new slide? Okay, the question is, what are the possible ways that are likely to improve the scale of evaluation professionalization? So how to improve it, what ways? What and by whom need to be done in order evaluation is professionalized on a broad scale? So maybe I could add to this, so maybe about your opinion, why some countries are more developed in the professionalization than the others. So what is the difference in this? Okay, thank you. So we can start again with Alok, please. Could you take?
Great, it's a great question. As highlighted in the answer to the first question, that professionalization has to take place both for commissioners and evaluators. Evaluators. And I just remember one incident, and why that scale matters. In Development Monitoring and Evaluation Office, in India, we were suddenly given this responsibility of evaluating 126 federally sponsored scheme running into billions of dollars, and they had to be evaluated within a period of less than 1 year. We realized the DMO itself did not have internal capacity. So we went out searching for external institutions, academic and research institutions. And sadly, we also, we realized that they also did not have that capacity to do it in a time-bound manner. And perforce, we were sort of, we had to go to large these consultancy firms, which could engage large teams to deliver such large, evaluations in a very time-bound manner. So, this requires that the scale is a necessary component. And second thing, the scale has to be situated within institutional framework so that these large teams can come together. And then, so that is one part. The other speakers have also highlighted that competency frameworks are necessary, evaluation policy is necessary component of, before professionalization can happen. Thankfully, in India, how we are going about it is quite interesting. And we have been lucky in some sense, because Indian government has undertaken taken this large for the civil services, for the government officers, which is called Prime Minister Karma Yogi scheme, under which actually the competency frameworks are being developed for the whole of the government. And so that way we were lucky that this scheme came, and that helped us connect to the larger government, saying that, okay, fine, you are asking us to develop the competency framework, and yes, we have developed one since we had already done some preparation. So we have developed that competency framework, and based on that, we have been able to devise the kind of kind of input that needs to be provided to officers across different departments and across various seniorities or hierarchies. So moreover, we need to realize that even for the earlier I did emphasize that we need to terms of evaluations be upgraded first. And some of the eminent speaker did highlight that demand for evaluation is the key problem. There is enough demand than just demand side. Which has become very relevant. Indian government has created a big online platform for this capacity building of civil servants, officers at different level, and that has also allowed us to hitch onto that online platform. And what that does is it just increases the scalability of our capacity building efforts. We are working with premier institutions, academic and research institutions, and international organizations to create people sitting back in their offices, they can do those online courses, which then we can combine with offline courses, so that practice based nature of evaluation can be imparted. Other speakers have already highlighted that how we need to actually work with university academic institutions to create courses of various durations, from certificate to degree courses, and we are working with university regulators to do something of that sort. Just that one last point that I want to highlight is that one thing that I had highlighted in the beginning, that institution building and professionalization has to go together, because in places where professionalization has not happened, even the evaluation institutions are fairly weak. And what in India we did, that we did a needs diagnosis for institutions, both the institution part of it, the systems and processes which are in place, that how evaluation is adopted, or how those insights are actually used in the government. Knowledge deficiencies, thus additional insights, not only into building institutions, but alongside undertaking those capacity building efforts. So that is a large kind of scalability, because when we think in India, given the size of this country, we think in terms of large scales, and I'm sure that India can serve as a good example of how scalability can be sort of undertaken in large large countries like India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alok, very much for a very good speech. So, so it is absolutely, I agree that the collaboration of institutions and educations are the key for bigger use of evaluation. So, and as you said, the right formula for this is the institutionalization and professionalization need to go together. So this could not be separated. So these two things should go alone, and will be so in probably in all the policies, national policies should be defined like this, that this should go together. So only one doesn't work really. Okay, thank you very much, Alok. Thank you. So we are going to the next speaker, Ms. Dr. Soma.
So here I would really like to focus on the supply side of professionalization, of evaluation. Just as much as we have problems with the supply side, I think we have also equally, if not greater, issues to deal with on the supply side as well. Often, I wonder why we have not been able to call evaluation a profession, or why it has not become professionalized. So we usually talk about theory of change. And we have also invested a great deal on if not professionalizing, but at least what we call capacity development, training. I think a huge effort has been made, which is all good, which is really necessary, and that is why we are at least here. But I think time has come to speed up, to accelerate. One reason why that is the case is that if we look at the VNR reports, voluntary national reports on SDGs, at least I looked at these a few years ago, about 2-3 years ago. The situation at the time, the summary reports prepared by various international agencies, is that very few countries have meaningfully used evaluation to achieve SDGs. Very, very few countries. So then I thought, okay, why don't we to start with come up with some sort of a theory of change? This is what I thought of. This is certainly not a good theory of change, but the purpose of it is to simply provoke some thinking. If we want to see the end result, that evaluation function is professionalized and institutionalized across the governments, what do we need? So talking about supply and demand, on the one hand, we need academic and practical training established within the tertiary education system in all regions, in all countries in the region, actually, if we want to get there. That's on the supply side. On the demand side, we need governments to have procedures to create cadres, to do evaluations, to use evaluations to achieve development results. Now, this is absolutely stupidly simple, I would say, but because behind this, there's a whole gamut of other things supporting this, opposing this. But I just wanted to present some views. And how do we get these things achieved? There are so many factors, and those can also change from country to country. But my very humble proposal here is that if the international community can agree on some sort of a results framework or a theory of change, where we have a final result as this, and then we identify the most critical factors necessary to produce that result through the usual process of situation analysis, whatnot. One thing, obviously, is that we need our evaluators to be academically trained, and they need to get experience as in any other profession. So once we have that kind of a steady stream of well-qualified, experienced evaluators, they themselves will be contributing towards enabling the governments to set up the necessary procedures. And there was just now a little while ago in the chat box a message from one of the participants saying, what about the general public? Don't they have a role to play? Yes, they have a role to play as well. Actually, I saw a small blog post by Caroline Hyder. She is a person also, I think, who works very much towards professionalization and supports it. And she points out these 4 things as necessary towards professionalization. We do, like in any other profession, actually she asks the question, if we are, say, sick with some problem, we need surgery, then who do we go to for help? Do we go to anybody who is supposed to have done some surgeries or who has no idea how to do a surgery, who have had no academic training. No, we will go to somebody who has gone through medical school, got an MBBS, then studied further under close supervision and got trained under experienced surgeons, did the exams, etc., and got through. So if evaluation has to be a profession, then evaluation, then the evaluator, potential evaluator must get academic training, then must follow internship under experienced evaluators and practice, and then become an evaluator. So I think that's a very, very good way of looking at it. So there must be good academic courses established in universities. So can the international community work towards this one goal? Can we have a curriculum which gives cutting edge knowledge, skills, how to deliver such programs? What should be a sort of a standard duration for that? What should be the learning outcomes? How do you measure those learning outcomes? What exams? And after exams, what is the procedure for practicing? So if we can do that, then I think we would have achieved quite a lot. New graduates should go through an internship training. Then, of course, we are already like, we have worked the other way around. We do have very strong professional associations. For example, up to mention APIA, because we are now doing an APIA program. I think it's doing wonderfully well, bringing people together, thinking of these ideas. I think of the time like 20 years ago, when I was with IOCE, I don't think we could even, come close to anything like this, because at that time, the context, the available resources, everything was quite different. And it's very heartening to see a lot of young people, a lot of experienced professionals coming together with these ideas. So finally, we also need legislation so that there is a legal basis to deal with malpractices. So, if there is one message I want to give, one idea that I would really like to be taken up, it's about establishing courses, and with that, we can also then deal with other things. Thank you so much. I would stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So I absolutely agree. So that, and you have nicely summarized all of these factors that are really important for expanding professionalization and education. So in ERIPE, so we have also understood that education is one of the key points for evaluation development, and we are trying to, let's say, to internationalize curricula for everywhere in the more countries in the world, that we have the same approach of education and training in evaluation. So thank you very much. Okay, so we are running out of time, so let us go to the next speaker. So Mr. Mayer, Professor Mayer.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me first support everything what Soma has already presented here. And just to say, yes, that's what we are working here for more than 20 years. So we are offering a blended learning program for Master of Evaluation here. It's called MABEL, Master Blended Learning Evaluation. And this is exactly, we want to develop the common language we have. So this course is in English, and it is open for people from everywhere. So we have several people from Asian countries in the course. And the idea is just to share the experiences from different places and to develop a shared understanding and common language of evaluation. So of course we are one small, let's say, piece of wood in the ocean running around. But I think, yes, this is a very important part. And by doing such kind of research in Europe, for example, Verena Friedrich from Switzerland recognized all the time that there are several master programs of evaluation, but they are not very much linked, and it is very difficult to exchange. But this has changed during the last 10 years, I think, in Europe, and it changes in the world. So this is important. This is on the supply side. And I want to highlight, following Monica, the role of the WUPIs. And I love this picture of the islands, the evaluation islands. It's not only divided by sectors, but also by the countries and the cultures, I think. And WUPIs are at the moment something like ships crossing from and between the islands. So some of them are just small boats, but others are maybe steam boats. But anyway, so we are really hardly trying to organize communication between evaluators all over the world, between the sectors in a country, and sometimes even within the sectors between different approaches. That's what WUPIs are doing, and they are doing that brilliant. But what they are not doing at the moment is building bridges. And this means that these networks, these more open networks for communications, has to become some kind of an advocate and a strong association pushing evaluation into the political systems. Because as we learned, the drivers are sitting, as Alok also mentioned, are sitting in the seat on the political level. And here are the hindering factors. And I think the most important one is that there's still a lack of knowledge about evaluation in the political system. So politicians do not really know what it is, and most of them probably recognize it as a measure for control. So they want to know what happens with their programs for sure, and they want to get hold on it and get a grip on it. So that's true. But if there's some critical points, they feel afraid. It could be dangerous from a political perspective. There are elections, and if somebody tells you that your program failed, this is not a good propaganda, say it like that. But well, these people are also learning, of course. Now in Germany, you know, in several areas, you hardly find anyone who is against evaluation. For example, in development cooperation, I can't even see any kind of resistance at any level. So this is changing, but it is slowly changing, and it's sometimes very difficult in some countries. You have to analyze it, but this is where we have to work. And where are we? These are the WUPIs, for sure. I think this is one of the main tasks, to bring evaluation to the decision makers in the countries. And there we are still very poor, because we are just linking each other here. Another point, and this is also in the picture of Monica, which is also a hindering factor. Yes, these are islands in the sectoral division. And we are, for example, we have edited a book here from the German WUPI on the use of the German De Gewalt standards in several sectors. And this is quite interesting, because, well, our idea is to be the guiding document and the guiding lead in these sectors, and this is absolutely not true. There are, of course, sectoral guidelines, standards, ethical rules, which are much more important than the guidelines published by the De Gewalt. They are recognized. This is the first step. That's good, but we still do not have the lead in the sectors. And I have my doubts if we ever will achieve that. But in a way, we must get more important to influence the quality of how evaluation is done in the sectors. So this is also a very, very strong task for WUPIs to improve here. So we have to move over from the WUPI side, from being a network of exchange, which of course we should be and we should continue, but becoming some kind of advocate for evaluation in the society. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Meyer. So it was very inspiring. So I'm really sorry that we do not have more time. So we have a very nice, very good panelists, 5 of you. So I'm sorry that we don't have. So you have so much to say about this. So I'm really sorry that we don't have more time, but probably we will organize something else about this. Oh, and thank you for mentioning WUPES. So it is very important for us, and so we really want to see them cooperating, at least in the regional association and through the IOC and other international organizations on the global scale. You're saying about the ignorance of politicians. So I would agree on some point, but so maybe I would agree more on the statement that they have more anxiety, and so they are not very confident about this. So how their programs will be evaluated in terms of opposition and the election and so on. So this is some questions that we need to overcome as well. Thank you very much. So, Violeta, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you again. Well, my take on this is that, of course, one of the very foundations of professionalizing evaluation practice is initially, at least on the part of the government, we have to develop evaluation competencies. So we have to set it up. So how are we doing? How are we addressing this in the case of the Philippines? We actually have partnered with UNDP under a project since 2018 to develop for us a competency framework for the conduct of and management of evaluations in the public sector, including a formulation of a national capacity development plan and its toolkit to anchor our future capacity development initiatives and interventions on the competencies required to produce qualified and competent M&E professionals. This is aligned also a lot of foundational activities we're doing in terms of a lot of commission, the thematic studies, program or project evaluations. So in parallel, we're doing this. We hope to standardize evaluation competencies together with our Civil Service Commission and our Department of Budget and Management to define the job descriptions of evaluation staffs prospectively, those who will create evaluation units in the agencies of the government. And of course, to improve to establish the competencies of for evaluation units ahead of the anticipated organizational reforms in the government agencies, which will create their evaluation units as soon as we succeed in having the pending bills on Evaluation Act in both the Senate and House of Representatives in the Congress. NEDA also, for its part, is gearing up for the creation of its own separate evaluation unit starting this year to act as the secretariat of the high cabinet level evaluation task force, which will coordinate all government evaluation activities according to the National Capacity Development Plan and National Evaluation Agenda. So this task force shall also provide advisory services and set policies and standards for evaluation in the public sector. Currently, we are in talks with the Philippine Statistical Research Institute to run modular courses on designing and, of course, on the methods of evaluations, among other course topics. And also, we are also exploring other partnership with other training institutions such as the Asian Institute of Management, our Development Academy of the Philippines, and other universities also, so that they will think about the possibility of embedding a curriculum on evaluation in their offerings in the near future, so that they may run these special courses on evaluation. So these are the foundation activities we're trying to do. At least it will jumpstart our dream of professionalizing this evaluation practice. For the community of practice, we need to establish and build on the roster of professional evaluators. So a database of good quality evaluation practitioners. We need to have that. But for disseminating the evaluation study results and findings, we also developed our national evaluation portal. It's now in the NEDA website as our repository of all completed evaluation studies and learning resource materials. Because we are able to receive assistance also from DFAT Australia since 2018, we commissioned already a total of 6 impact evaluation studies. So it's for demonstration and pilot purposes, also learning by doing on our part and our agencies involved in these impact evaluation studies. But these impact evaluation studies are administered by 3IE. So we are properly guided on how to conduct evaluation studies, how to do policy consultations with the cabinet secretaries for this impact evaluation study. So in that manner, we also try to get the commitment, the ownership by the department heads in the conduct of this impact evaluation study. So they should be the advocates. It's also a way of opening their minds into future doing evaluations on their own, internal evaluations. It could be a evaluation of their strategies employed in their implemented projects. So it could be various types of evaluation they might want to do later on. On the part of UNDP also supports us by providing advisory and management services in commissioning evaluation studies, as well as the procurement of they have a good roster of evaluation practitioners, both in the international and local market. So we have also international evaluators under the UNDP Commission studies. In a way, it is learning by doing for us and also training us at the same time while we commission these studies. The National Evaluation Portal and also Management Information System is also supported by UNDP. So what I'm saying is we are able to lay the foundations and groundwork for institutionalization. And maybe in the nearest future, we're moving forward to professionalization of the evaluation practice in the public sector. But of course, a lot of challenges remain. So we'll get there. Back to you, Vlatko.
Thank you, Violeta. Thank you very much. So seems to be that you are doing a lot of things to institutionalize and professionalize this. So good luck with all of this. And
Thank you.
I like this the support of international organizations, so especially UN agencies and some other agencies, so they can do a really big deal, be of good support, so blow the wind to the back and support the VOPES and the governments and everyone, so because they have a credibility and fund and experience, so it will be much easier if they are involved in this and support VOPES in this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Monica, how are you, Monica?
Yeah, when considering what could be done to make evaluation more professionalized, we should not forget not only about using evaluation findings that, for instance, Alok mentioned, but also about the including society and evaluation process, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult, task. And I like the metaphor that Wolfgang made about building bridges. And I think this bridge is crucial. Why? Because even if we have very skilled evaluators and very skilled commissioners, yes, we should not forget that evaluation does not serve only the supply and the demand side, yes, but we, give some crucial information to the demand side. That supply side makes money for it, yes, but evaluation should be socialized procedure, which is very difficult, socialized procedure, yes, with strong participation of a community. Because evaluation does not work sometimes. Why? Because people even don't know that we conduct evaluation, yes? They don't understand what it is for, why evaluation is carried out, and the most important, what evaluation changes. How often you inform people what evaluation has changed? Quite rare, yes? So not only evaluators and commissioners should be professional, but also, of course, decision makers should be professionalized, yes, but also society should be professionalized. Fortunately, society and ordinary people can vote, yes? So politicians and decision makers have to take their opinion into consideration, yes, because of voting. If people don't vote for politicians, politicians are no longer, decision makers. So maybe, maybe this is the chance. Maybe I am naive, but this is the only, the last chance that the people have. Yes, just voting. So I mean that the communities also should be educated. It should be aware of the benefits from evaluation, and they should be the key actors of the evaluation ecosystem. And however, we quite often forget about educating and for making aware of communities that they are one of the most important recipients of evaluation findings, because all projects, programs, initiatives that we evaluate are aimed at the given communities, not at commissioners, not at decision makers. Yes. So when we prepare, for instance, evaluation concepts, without the participation of these communities. Quite often situation, yes. And for instance, we do not ask them what their evaluation needs are, what they want to know from evaluation, what they need, yes, what kind of information they need, what they would like to know. And we do not engage them in findings interpretation. How often do we do it? We treat them like instrument in an instrumental way. Okay, they are our interviewees, they are our respondents, but how often do we engage them in findings interpretation or in formulating recommendations? Quite rare, yes. So we do not also care for preparing understandable messages for the communities. Yes, because as you know, the evaluation reports are difficult to read, even for educated people. So what about communities? Yes. So in this case, people do not really benefit from evaluation. And then the question arises, why do we need professional evaluators and commissioners if they do not serve to society, to social good, and to the improvement of people's life? Yes, so we should not forget about this factor when talking about professionalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is really important. So I absolutely agree with you that all the programs and projects are for the benefit of people. So absolutely, so we really need to take this in the account when do the evaluation. So what is the impact on the people on this? So, but it is rarely that the commissioners ask this question. So they want to know, so how efficient this are the money spent on not thinking about the people. Thank you very much. So it is very useful, and I hope this will change something so in the future. Okay, thank you very much to all of you. So we have still 15 minutes to go, and 5 minutes we have for wrap up. So we have some session of questions. So I would like to invite the participants to ask some short questions and to panelists to provide some short replies to this. So do we have any questions for the panelists? Okay, so how can donor-funded projects evaluation feed into national evaluation ecosystems? Can you see these questions? So how can donor-funded projects evaluation fit into national evaluation ecosystems? Is there anyone who would like to respond to this question?
I start because I just had a session on that on Tuesday.
Great.
In the framework of the Korean Evaluation Society. Yes, I think it is very important. Well, we all are coming from a program and project-oriented perspective, which is doing evaluation around interventions. And this is supported by donor organizations, for sure. But during the last decade, I think more and more donors invested money in building up national monitoring and evaluation systems. And this is strongly linked also to the discussion of the SDGs. And I think more and more countries learned that this is a different perspective. As from a national point of view, you have to look at the national system. For example, you want to improve the health system to be much more resilient against such threats like, let's say, the coronavirus. So this is, of course, a huge task for a country like Sri Lanka or India or whatever, even small island states. This is really a challenging factor, but you have to look at that from a national perspective. This is your system of health. And then you have to look on what kind of measures and probably what kind of support from donors you need. So you have to switch the perspective. And this means monitoring evaluation will be totally different. It must be much more system-oriented, less intervention-oriented. It must be more producing as an output new ideas, programs, leverage points where you can start to change something in the system to improve it. So we are still at a very, very early stage of thinking in this way on a national level. But I'm very optimistic because the SDGs brought it into mind. If you really want to contribute to sustainable development goals, then you have to think into this national perspective and not in the perspective of a single intervention. This does not mean that you have to replace it, but you have to add this from this perspective. And I think this is to encourage everybody. This is something you have to build up in your countries.
Thank you, Professor Meyer. So Jenny, I hope so it is a good reply for you. So could you stop, please stop sharing the slide so that we can see each other more? Okay, thank you very much. So for the panelists from Philippines, so Violeta, what is the timeline of officially requiring integrating M&E in the systems of public administration?
Okay, let me clarify, no? M&E in itself is embedded in all of the ongoing development programs and projects, particularly those with official development assistance and big ticket nationally funded programs and projects. They have embedded M&E in their project management offices, but what we are trying to drive at is the evaluation per se. It is a totally different side of the M&E part. It's basically assessing whether you've attained the objectives apart from the M&E, which is actually a day-to-day activity up to the delivery of the outputs of a program or a project. So we have the M&E, it's sufficient enough. We're actually doing a portfolio review of all those ongoing programs and projects on an annual basis. I'm leading the consolidation of the report for the Congress on an annual basis every June on the implementation issues, whatever progress, financial accomplishments of all of those programs and projects. We generate M&E information from the agencies. But in the aspect of evaluation, this is something that would require special skills. That's why we elevate it to be a legal and executive measure. Right now, the policy framework we have is an executive measure, which could be a reverse. There might be a possible reversal if you have a change in administration, a change in president, changes in the senators and congressmen. So we have around 4 House bills and the lower house, the Congress, and 2 Senate bills actually advocating for that Evaluation Act. And we hope that in the next sessions, they continue to discuss on that. We've had several hearings with the Senate and the Congress at running parallel sessions debating on this Evaluation Act. More or less, their versions are quite the same. We have to create evaluation units. We have to hire people to do evaluations. All agencies will have a 6-year rolling evaluation plan aligned with the Philippine Development Plan. What is it they commit to the Philippine Development Plan in terms of their contribution, and therefore measure programs and projects in terms of the achievement of the objectives of those programs and projects within the timeline of the Philippine Development Plan. It's going to be a rolling evaluation plan, 6-year evaluation plan. Once they start doing it, once they have evaluation units, once resources are provided to create such evaluation units, and once budgets are allocated to at least 2 evaluation topics on an annual basis, and it's going to be a rolling evaluation plan, 2 evaluation topics per year. So we are really cramming up with setting up the competencies, because the job descriptions will have to be there before it happens. We have to have the descriptions of various specialists, evaluation specialists in different salary grades, pay scale. So we're doing it at the oversight level. We have to finalize this competency framework, job descriptions, and of course, a pilot national evaluation agenda for the thematic studies, like evaluations at the sectoral level. We leave evaluations at the project-specific level, at the agency level. So there are several layers of evaluation we're seeing to happen. And of course, our national evaluation portal eventually will house all the results of those evaluation studies that anyone can just view and learn from the executive summaries of all the evaluations done simultaneously by all the evaluation units of the agencies. So it's a massive undertaking, and it will cost a lot of resources from the government, but we have to strategize in really determining which topics are more relevant to the achievement of the Philippine Development Plan. And of course, the high impact, those with high cost will be prioritized, and we have a selection criteria on what to evaluate. And of course, Monica was right in driving at that issue that beneficiaries should be consulted. We've tried stakeholders consultations, bringing up to the level of our local governments, stakeholders, mayors in some of our thematic studies. And in the surveys done, definitely there are beneficiary surveys, and they will have to be consulted in terms of really determining what are the impact to the beneficiaries of all these programs and projects, like the housing shelter program. We have the housing shelter program. We did an impact evaluation there. And now we're shifting now, also adjusting to the call of the pandemic. We're now evaluating the alternative learning modalities, switching to this blended learning. We also are evaluating somehow these alternative work arrangements because of this pandemic. So we try to adjust the types of evaluation we want to do in terms of the current times, what should be evaluated. So we keep our eyes open on the relevant topics that we should evaluate, and impact really measure how this contribute to the achievement of our Philippine Development Plan. So the timeline, I'm not sure when Congress and Senate bilaterally will approve a single evaluation act, but their versions are very similar. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Violeta, for this extensive explanation. Okay, so I think that we are out of time. We have 4 minutes when we need to stop exactly on time. So there is a request from the organization to fill this questionnaire, please. So you are all invited to fill the questionnaire, the participants. And so I would like just to summarize something. So the main inputs from this. I'm not ambitious that I'm going to cover everything, but something that I found the most interesting. So it is about the connection of the trust and the standardization of the profession. So the profession cannot be trusted if there is no standards which are defined and followed. And the importance of both sides speaking the same language. So this is quite important that they understand each other. So what is this about evaluation and how the professionalization should be done? So we have tackled the politicians several times, and so they do not welcome evaluation. So there is a reason for this. So there are several reasons. One of them could be their ignorance or not big interest for this. And the second one is anxiety or not having real cause and reason why to explain what they do. So they sometimes, I have a personal experience that they are not very convinced that the other people should know what they do. So what is absolutely different than Monica said, that we need to involve people in evaluation and be transparent to them, tell them what is really going on. And usually the evaluations are somewhere on some web page, in best case in some corner or in some drawer. So we need to work on transparency, of course. So no doubt the evaluation professionalization is demand driven. And there is a big link between the evaluation, the professionalization and institutionalization. So it should be the parallel process that we work on both of them. So we mentioned that the low quality as a consequence of a low education and training, low quality evaluation can be very dangerous for the development of evaluation profession. So it is really important that we have a legal framework and of course VOPES to establish the standards and drive the change. So this is something really we need to work on this, and of course to work on the integration of VOPES collaborations, regional networking, and so on, as of course to develop the regional evaluation cultures in the countries. So collaboration of institutions is very important, and this institutionalization and professionalization go together, and this is the only way that we can have any impact on this. So I have no more time, so I will stop here, And thank you very much to all the panelists. So it was a great panel. You have provided great inputs. So I hope we will have a chance to continue with this discussion in some other occasion. Thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you, Latko, for chairing that session. We thank all the panelists once again on behalf of the organizing committee. We have 2 more sessions today evening. I have dropped link to one of them in the chat. If you're interested to join them, please do join them. I request other production team members to paste link for the other one as well. See you all in the evening sessions and in tomorrow's sessions. Thank you.